Okay, right, so starting on the seminar on teamwork. Right, I'll give you one of them as well, sorry.
Thank you very much.
So these are built on the words of Mikhail Kendrysky, manager and managing director and founder of Republic Media, which is a London-based company. So we were talking about obviously teamwork and key components of what's needed for it to be a positive sort of working environment and how it's meant to stay like a healthy work area. So he said one main thing was communication, and communication is key with each other. Otherwise, if you don't communicate, you're not going to get projects done. You're not going to be keeping up to date with what's being made. And telling me about a time when he hadn't got a word back from his one of his work teammates, which had caused problems, and therefore which also kind of links with the negative side, which is workload. Since he wasn't replying or even in, then the workload had piled on top of him, therefore putting more pressure on him, which was a big problem. And I think we all know of times when a certain someone has been ill and caused a bit of stress on others. Does anyone know anyone like that? No? Okay, let's move on. But yeah, we're looking up about teamwork on different websites, including Creative Block. And the top 3 results about teamwork, communication was in the top 3, showing, you know, it's a big component. Not only just talking within placement, but outside of work through messaging and everything, because then you get to know who you're working with and everything, which we all do. We all message each other in our own groups and everything, talking about when everyone's coming in, what's going on, and sending some funny stuff as well. So I think it's always good to have that sort of positive attitude, otherwise that will cause problems. But building on the fact of being collaborative and communicative is working with others. So in some places, which Mikhail has done with interns that he has had in the past, is that he works with the interns, showing them, you know, how to do, like doing through walkthroughs and everything with them, the processes he's learnt over the time since he's been doing it from a young age, showing all his tips and tricks of the trade, which have got him to where he is as the managing director of the company. And another thing is with communication is meetings. Meetings is a big it's needed for big companies and just companies in general. Like I have at work. I don't know if anyone else has talks when they're at work at all.
Not necessarily meetings, but like before work we have like briefings and stuff.
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
You have like a 10-minute briefing where the team comes together
exactly.
and the manager tells everyone what the rules are and what you're going to be doing for the day.
Yeah, exactly. So that sort of thing's important. So you're all on the same sort of basis. So you're all on the same sort of level head together. And you
spent half my time in meetings in my last job. They were very, very adamant about it, just to make sure everybody's on the same page.
Yeah, exactly. Otherwise, things are going to fall through, and that's going to make a company fall if you don't. Which is something he even said, because he used to have another company that he worked for, but he left because they said their process of dealing with things was just poor, which was down south actually. I can't remember the name exactly, but yeah. So. Without having that,
Can I jump into the communication thing, because you clearly put in this in positive and negative things, and it was quite interesting to hear what people had to say. Are there positives and negatives to communication though? For example, I get hundreds of emails every day.
of course, it can load up.
So like I spend my time answering emails rather than talking to people. So where's the limits, or where's the good, what is the good practice and what is the bad practice? Yeah, we know that kind of, in general, more communication is good.
But so much can become.
Yeah, where's the limit? That's the key questions that you need to be kind of answering. Any input?
I think it's definitely important not to spend so much time
communication.
in meetings and discussing what
And
I'm
then
actually
getting-
doing.
Yeah, of course.
So there's a balance there to be had.
So if, for example, the agenda to the meeting was not what are we going to do, but how well did it go, then it would swing the, you know, and it would maybe make it more effective, or the other way around. Does that make sense? Like, it's the agenda on the meeting that drives how much communication, what you're discussing about in the meeting. Because yeah, I've had meetings about meetings. I'm not joking. It sounds quite funny, but you know, oh, we're going to have more meetings, kind of thing. What do you think, Jess?
I mean, I'll be doing communication as well anyway, but the statistics that I've looked up is quite. It's in favour of communicating electronically. Although some people are starting to want to go back to face-to-face meetings and just communication in general.
That Twitter, social media is just big on that.
Exactly.
It's a big input for it. Another part of which is sort of improving teamwork in general is appraisal. Like we touched on this before, but it's worthwhile in a lot of ways. It can guide people to the right, you know, sort of like guide them, give them, you know, you can also let them set targets. So like there's this thing called SMART acronym, which is like a acronym which gives criteria to sort of like guide the setting of objectives for people, which is good for you know, if you get an appraisal, you want it to be in the right appraisal, you want it in the right way, so you can build on it. You don't want to just that's nice. That's not really building on anything, is it?
You want critical feedback.
Yeah.
That's what you want.
Constructive criticism.
That's the one.
Yeah. Otherwise, you're not really you're getting praise, but you're not really learning anything from it.
No.
Which is what sort of what I think that things that Dan does, you know.
Yeah.
The good but bad. And I obviously touched on it before, you know, like having praise is good, you know, saying this, but then building on that with a situation where it needs to be worked, you know, what needs to be improved. Having a positive attitude, like you
Can I just
yeah, of course you can.
carry on with the appraisal thing? Because I think it's really legit. I think everybody here really values it. Do we understand it? Do we know how it would work? Is that once a year, once a project, once a week, once a day?
Once every Friday.
We continue.
Friday down the pub.
Yeah, but Friday
But is it?
Yeah, but Friday is like the last day of the week. Everyone's
Yeah,
calmed
but
down.
okay. One thing that I have learned certainly is never give somebody bad news on a Friday. That's like a business no-no. Why do you think that might be?
It's starting
Put
the
bad
weekend.
mood for the week.
You're basically gonna wallow in your disillusionment for the whole weekend. Does that make sense?
And then start on Monday.
Well, you're not gonna come back. well, hopefully you do. Do you know what I mean? Touch wood, but you might not.
Yeah.
So, I think it's really interesting to introduce this topic. But what have you found out about that? What does your company do? Do they do annual appraisals?
It's sort of a with Michal. It's sort of a walk around situation.
But
You
how
know, like,
frequent sort of thing?
Is it recorded?
no, it's not. It's nothing.
Well, that's it. Like,
Yeah.
it depends on the size of the company. Here, I have recorded appraisals annually,
Mm.
and I think it would be worth you guys finding out
Yeah.
about how that
I think
can
you-
benefit
Yeah.
teamwork. Because one of the criteria in my appraisal is that if I don't score highly enough, then I lose my bonus, and it's worth
Yeah.
investigating those kind of things.
Yeah. I wish I looked more into that actually. Because when I look at it, I look at the sort of like core. Appraisal has its benefits. You learn it. You get you feel positive about it, but also it can help you in the long run as well. Moving on from that. Other ways you can like say if you want to stay positive in when going back to the creative block sort of list of things you can keep positive. These sort of there's sprints, they're like boards and you know
task
sort
force.
of task force sort of things. Yeah, and then they got these like you guys did lunch and learns, sort of like that just sort of like a meet and greets, drinks and greets, because then you get to learn more from others and like we're doing now, have a talk about.
Because it's not so formal. I think you do learn more when it's not so formal.
It sort of depends, I think, because sometimes I don't know. I feel I'd learn more. Just say, for example, we talked to Dan outside, like just informally. I feel we wouldn't learn so much as formally. I don't know what you guys think about that. What would you say?
People say that like they learn more in like 2 weeks of work experience than in 2 years at uni.
Exactly.
So it shows.
That's still like work.
Well, yeah,
No,
but it's
that's not
not so structured and formal like this. This isn't that formal. Whereas in a sort of classroom, instead of getting like taught Premiere Pro, whatever.
You learn what you want to learn
Yeah.
and improving the skills that you need to improve rather than just general.
You learn a lot.
Yeah, I think in a workplace
Definitely.
you learn what's kind of thrown at you rather than the kind of what you want
Yeah.
to learn. So,
Yeah. I suppose it's just the fact that from my just general experience, in being in college, I've learned, or in uni and school and everything, learning a lot from.
yeah.
But also like when being at home, looking at tutorials and stuff, that's sort of like an informal sort of situation. You do learn a lot from that sort of thing as well. Like when you need to learn something and when you want to learn more, you got to do that.
That has everything to do with it. If you want to learn, then you will learn more.
Can I just ask what learning has to do with teamwork? Sorry,
Oh yeah, sorry.
I think we're slightly
sidetracked.
deviating.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
your seminar. You keep it on.
Yeah, sorry.
You keep it on track.
Yeah, yeah.
There could be connections,
Mm.
but
It's all
I don't really know them at the moment.
Mm. No, yeah, I know. Also I suppose that's that sort of sidetrack and keeping positive teamwork, but in a workplace, like there's other ways of keeping positive and keeping not like a communal, but like a sort of communicating and keeping a happy vibe in a workplace is hackathons. So they're viewed as like a development exercise. It allows like a creative outlet. So you'd have like a bunch of people having their own creative freedom to do what they want in the workplace, which is quite a cool idea. Which also allows you to, with your other teammates, to have a look and see what they do outside, which gives you a better idea of what they like personally, gives you a better understanding.
The idea of the hackathons, I think, really interesting.
Yeah.
If I was given a chance and if I was responsible for the professional development
I can imagine doing
and
that.
morale and teamwork of my team here, I'd say, let's make something.
Yeah. It just
Who
seems like a
cares?
cool.
Like, here's the brief on that day, and it's going to connect people. Like, everybody here wants to make things. It is quite interesting.
Yeah. I think
Which companies do that?
loads of big companies. I don't know so much that because Mikhail never actually said he ever did any. But when I was researching more about sort of motivation.
Isn't it Facebook
teamwork.
or Google that has this rule about, it's the 20-80 rule? Have you not heard of that?
80%
It's got to be
working.
80% work and 20% personal projects.
Yeah, I think.
But they get appraised on it, so it's like every month, tell me the amount of time that you've done on your personal projects. What are they? How is it improved? Do you know what I mean? It's not just go and play on Facebook for 20
Yeah,
hours.
you're actually going to learn something.
Yeah,
Which
and
is
share
really
it
good.
with the team.
Yeah, that'd be fun. Just like classes in general, I feel. I mean, you got your projects, your main projects, but having like a little project on this, whilst like it's like okay, we'll all do this and see how it comes out. Even like as a team, I feel like you'd learn. If we each give each other feedback on what we've created, not that we don't get that anywhere, like in a class or like in a workplace, it's helpful, I'd say, because then you can build on it. Going back to what I've said before.
We're gonna have to wrap it
Yeah.
up
Sure.
there.
Cool. Any
Cool.
other wants to know?
Ego.
Anything?
Yeah, I'm next. Is
Yes.
that what we said?
Yeah. Alright.
Cool.
You can make a move.
Yeah. Right, cheers. Right, you guys can hold on to them if you so wish.
Charlie, I'll give you one of mine.
Oh, cheers. I'll have a read of that.
Don't watch it, but
The videos will be on Vimeo,
YouTube.
so I can catch up on.
why are you looking at me?
Does it definitely capture an ego? Yeah.
It is. It's got a bit of me on.
Try to make sure my head doesn't get in the way.
It's hot in here.
Or you just know.
Sweating hard.
I'm enjoying my Capri Sun.
Go for it.
Oh, me?
Yeah.
Oh, right, okay, so
Enjoy, guys.
positive teamwork. What picked up from the meeting was again strong communication, but I'm not going to go into like kind of how it's done. I think what picked up the most was how to communicate instead of like when you just like meet with people, which just sometimes could be quite hard because not everyone can make it. What people have been mentioning is using different types of media, so maybe like Skype, where you could have multi-calls and you have a couple of people like talking to each other, or another one was Slack, when people like have a group somewhere, people just put different kind of things. So it's not kind of all serious like 100% thing. It's kind of, you could have like jokes in there, you could have emojis, like it's kind of balancing work and a bit of fun together. Otherwise it just becomes all too serious and people just stop engaging. Yeah, and to refer it back to us, we have our own little Facebook group, and like it's not obviously we talk about like work and stuff like that, but obviously there's other stuff going on. Like I'll put some pictures from the weekend, like I've been smashed, like Josh is like cycling bike or whatever.
And let's not mention what Bart puts
Yeah.
on there.
Exactly, so it's kind of I mean, keeping the communication obviously strong, but I think maybe using different types of media will keep people interested because it's not so serious. And I've read on the internet about it, like there's more and more things coming through, and like obviously Skype is kind of obvious one, but then something like Slack, not everyone knows, but I think between all the designers and stuff, like I read on some blogs, quite a lot of people use them, and people from the meeting that already mentioned it, that's how they get together and kind of communicate. And another thing about positive feedback, teamwork, is people being honest. I covered, like if you're working in a team and there's no point in saying, oh I can do this, I can do that, like so many times, like kind of Scott or people have said that like you rely on people, oh can you do the website, could you do the coding for this? They're like, yeah, it can be done by Friday, and it comes to Friday, things ain't done, and then when you go speak to them, oh I couldn't actually get it done, or I couldn't do that. I think what I've covered is that people just need to be honest. If you can't do it, then you'll be given another job which you can do and which will benefit the team, rather than taking something on which you're not sure about and then you end up letting the whole team down and then nothing gets done. Same as like when I go to work, like there's new things that I do sometimes, but like my manager always says to me, if you can't get it done or you're not sure, ask him, we'll give you some training, and then you could start on doing it. There's no like one thing to take away. Don't say you can do things if you can't do things.
Yeah, I think some people have this kind of idea that they want to kind of like do it all and kind of impress everyone. But
Can't be good at
they
everything.
you can't be good at everything, you can't do everything. So then you take on
So much.
realistic amount.
Bite where you can chew. So going to the negative teamwork. So one thing that came up is to never burn bridges. So it doesn't matter how bad like some of the members in the team are, whether you don't like the boss and stuff, you never leave on a bad note, because it will come to haunt you in future. Whether you go and apply for another job and there's the same boss, or you need help with those people, I think it's important to take the positive out and negative. So if things were that bad, you just either just shut up, leave it, and don't slag people off, because it will come back to you. And another thing, obviously, honest feedback. I've kind of had this at work when I had my wrist broken and I couldn't work for 3 weeks, and then I came back and I was really slacking at work and stuff, and like I kind of didn't realise it, but then things weren't getting done for long, and then my manager took me to the office and she was like, since you've been back, you've just not been good enough, and I don't know whether it's your wrist that's still hurting, or you just kind of forgot how the things are done. And we had a little talk for like half an hour about how things are and what's actually holding me back, and that actually helped me. So I kind of got back on track and started doing things that they should be. So I think it doesn't matter what the truth is, you've got to be honest if you want the person to improve on something. So I mean, that was obviously my work, but if you go back to design, like if I design something, I would rather people say it's just not good enough altogether, and then I could start again, rather than me doing something and then I'll go and meet the client and they'll be like, oh, this is just complete rubbish, and then it'll be just loads of waste of time, money, and other people's effort. So I'd rather get honest feedback straight away, so I can go back and like take things apart and then see what can be actually done, rather than just like, yeah, this is good and that.
Can I go back to one of the little points that you raised? And I thought that was really interesting. So, your manager took you to the side
Yeah.
and said, and gave you, literally on the plate, an excuse.
Yeah.
You could have taken that.
Yeah. But I didn't take it.
Do you think that's a really important thing to do? Do you think managers should always go, it might be...
Yeah, so there was two options, whether it was like, is it actually your wrist, you need more time off, or is it actually that you had so much time off it's kind of hard to come back? But it wasn't the wrist, it was just that I had too much time off. But
I don't think it was either, really, Igor. I think you're just probably
well, I don't
not
know.
enjoying the work.
No, not necessary, but I think for her to come and speak to me was better than just me kind of slacking off and people were like, oh, he's not doing this, he's not doing that.
But you're much more likely to own up to something. For example, if you're given an excuse to get out of something, you know, to say, yeah, my wrist does hurt a little bit more, but I will work harder. There's nothing like having that kind of excuse to blame something on to change the way that you work. Does that make sense?
Kinda.
So, for example, if the manager just said, well, you're not doing very much work, you're going to become defensive. Do you know what I mean? You've got no way of getting out of it. Like, they've put you in a corner. Nobody wants to be cornered.
I think it's just nice to be kind of given the benefit of the doubt.
Yes,
Situation.
this is the kind of thing that I'm
Yeah,
looking
so
for.
that's kind of the approach maybe people should, like, the managers or people higher up should have, instead of, like, cornering people, give them an option to, I don't know, defend the argument, I suppose. But yeah, that's like one of the examples that I had at work. I don't know if any of you had any sort of similar experiences with anything like that. Right, so honest feedback. So talked about all the problems that people came, like designers had before, and some of them kind of I've had as well. So how to improve teamwork. So Ollie already spoke about rewards, and I would say it's the same thing, but I could honestly refer back to my company. So once a month we have a competition at work. So the person that gets the most multi-sales basically when you sell 2 or more pairs of shoes at the same time. So the person that has the most multi-sales at the end of a month wins 3 pairs of shoes. I mean, it's not a big, like, it's not something massive, you don't win a car or something like that, but I think getting a reward once a month for your hard work is something that, like, keeps people motivated kind of thing. And like things change, so it goes from like multi-sales to maybe taking the most money. But it's nice to have this thing. So basically at the end of each payday, so not only you get a payday, you get like a little bonus at the top. I mean, it's nothing too big, but it feels nice for just getting anything for hard work that you put in. So it kind of shows if you do work hard, in the end, it's kind of the same people come to the top. But then, if you see people always winning, you kind of want to be like, right, if they can do it, why can I do it? So there is kind of like a end goal to work to.
I'm really confused about this topic. I just can't see how rewards, or I can loosely, but I can't really see how individual rewards support teamwork. I can see how they might support individual productivity. Does that make sense?
Seems like it.
But then, no,
does
how it,
actually.
not necessarily, but then if you see somebody always like, oh, they're doing well, you could kind of want to be on the same level. So it kind of brings up people up instead of slapping.
Okay, but there's a really interesting thing, and I think wider reading on this topic, and I don't think it would be that hard to do, would be really interesting. So for example, a question might be, are people who work for Co-op and Waitrose happier and more productive than people who work for like Carphone Warehouse, that is very much like, right, you sell 10 phones, you get another 200 quid, it's all on commission, you know what I mean, it's really Americanized and really cutthroat. Where would you rather work?
Co-op.
Exactly. Yeah? Where they don't get individual rewards, not in the same way, because effectively all the employees of Waitrose and Co-op own the company. It's a cooperative. That's the logic behind it. And effectively, if they know that their whole company, they do better, they get more dividends individually, they all kind of pitch in. Does that make sense? Whereas employees in Carphone Warehouse, I reckon they don't care anything about, or any, other phone companies do exist, but any of them really care about the company as a whole, unless you're up in management.
Yeah.
It's an interesting discussion, isn't it? There was a program on TV last night which was about health benefits, and they said, should we reward individuals or should we reward groups? And so they got two groups of people. One had to count the steps individually, and each individual got a reward for how many calories they burn every day. And one, they got the whole group to meet a target. Which one do you think is more effective in terms of teamwork?
Teamwork.
The group.
Well, exactly. Does that make sense? I'm just trying to get you back to your kind of thing. Why? Because maybe in the future, in the long term, you are working for a medium-sized company with 20 employees or something like that. Do you know what I mean? And that's where you start to actually think about these things. Do you know what I mean? If your profits are losing 10% each month, and you've got a bad prospect over the year, you need to do something, and you start to kind of worry, not just about getting clients, but, how to keep the morale up. It's been a long time since you had a good, nice project that you were all doing or whatever. I don't know. Is that making sense?
Yeah. I get it. So moving on to the next one, I think giving people clear roles, I think that's kind of really brings the team together. I don't know, maybe going back to last year when we were working in teams to make a video, I think everyone kind of had a role, so like one had to come up with a script, the other person had to do a storyboard, another person had to find it audio, the other person had to go and film it, and obviously one person had to go and edit it. I think having clear roles in a team is essential, otherwise people just, if you like have a team like, we've got a project, let's just like, people start doing the same things, or some people are doing better than the other, so maybe finding out what the strengths and weaknesses are in the team and give them like what they actually be happy with. And I think if you give someone something that they want to do, they'll make it better rather than someone like, oh, do the editing and you've never really done it before. So I think clear roles is something that needs to be in the team, and the same as at work. I come in, I get told what to do. I mean, sometimes it's not necessarily what I want to do, but then if you know what you're doing, you have to complete it on a deadline, and that's something that came up at the discussion at the meeting when they were organising the quiz night. it was Scott and Joe, so they had clear rules of he's gonna do the design part, she will do the social media, and then when those two parts kind of came together, they got a successful quiz night with 70 people turn up and everyone had fun. So that's that.
We're gonna wrap it up there, I think. Is that alright?
Yeah.
Do you want to just chuck those top tips out?
Yeah, I would say the best one would be honest when you can't deliver. I think that's like one thing I've taken away from there. It's like can't be done. Just like you can't get it done. Just be honest rather than otherwise at the end you just end up feeling awkward and things not get done. And I think like emailing and text is kind of becoming a bit old fashioned. Maybe start like moving on with the social media side and things, and like moving on from like Skype and Slack, maybe Dribbble, and never burn bridges, never slag people off if you leave the company because they all come to haunt you in the future.
Cool. Thank you very much. There was almost a clap there.
Yeah, so-
We're a small team.
Cheers, Josh. I would take the halfway.
Igor, can you focus it on Josh, please? It's hot in here, man.
Can we open the door just for like
No.
a second?
A second, go on.
Right, Josh, you're gonna stay. Where are you gonna stay? You keep moving,
You
man.
never know.
Like that,
You
yeah.
never know.
Okay, stay
The
like that.
sun, fresh.
It's to get to the back of his head. Move the camera out a little bit.
I don't know what you mean.
He wants to see how he performs.
Like that?
Igor, take the tripod and move it over there. Awesome, thank you.
I'm just back here, make it easier. Oh, careful with that.
Careful, you go.
It's not that much of an issue, guys.
Right. Good.
Good.
Okay, starting off, there's a quote from Babe Ruth that says the way the team plays, plays as a whole determines the success. So it's basically they might be the hardest workers individually, might have the most talented people in at the company, but if they don't know how to mesh with the other people on the team, it's kind of a waste as a whole. So I thought that's quite an interesting quote to have to think about. As for a positive kind of teamwork, one of the things when I was at the PF meet, I was speaking to Joe and Scott, and one of the ways they kind of got promoted positive teamwork was the Drink and Dribble meetup, which they did, which was interesting because it got kind of designers to kind of get used to showcasing the work and taking feedback, which are traits that are quite useful to have in the actual work environment of the team. So if they're in the office, they're kind of showing the work to colleagues, getting feedback and kind of building on it that way. I think that's quite useful. That useful thing to do, and I think that's quite a good way to promote positive teamwork.
I think it kind of takes back the seriousness of it. So you can come in for a drink, but yet you're still doing the work because you'll be discussing the future projects, making connections. So you're kind of still doing the thing, but having a drink as well. So having fun and work comes together.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean the ultimate kind of situation you want to be in with that kind of thing is just that everyone's kind of comfortable and confident communicating what they're doing and making sure they're on the same page with regards to the work they're doing or any work they might be able to do. I think that's quite important. I don't know if you have any thoughts on that, Jess?
No, sorry.
It's alright. However, it's not always good teamwork. It very often goes wrong, in fact. When I spoke to Jo, she she generally had good experiences, but I also spoke to Paul, who runs the web company in Southampton, and he had a big issue with an employee he had once, that they said they could do more than they could actually do, so they kind of oversold themselves, and the repercussions of that was when it came to deadlines, when it came to getting results, they weren't there. He wasn't producing what he said he could do. He was constantly asking for help on things that, you know, his job description said he was able to do. And ultimately, you know, we'll have to let him go, but it's kind of what happens when you're not really honest with your employer or members of the team or your manager, and someone else could have been given that work and it could have got done on time.
But that's quite an interesting point, because maybe in design you can't really lie, because you can't really learn Photoshop in a couple of days, but
No.
with my job I kind of lied that I worked in the shoe shop before. Like, that's the only way I could get in. But I think with kind of retail, you could pick up things quick. It doesn't take long, like to just like know how to like put things back in the stock and stuff like that. I think maybe in the normal job you can lie about it, but I think with design you can't lie about Photoshop and all the like skills and all the like photography and stuff like that.
You'd be surprised. Scott actually employed someone, and he managed to actually blag the whole interview and actually got employed. But after like a week or two.
No, what I'm saying is that like I could lie about it and get away with it because it could pick up quick. But I think if you lie within design, you're gonna find out really quick and it'll be gone.
Oh yeah, Scott knew within like 2 weeks.
I mean, you could be good at using Photoshop, but if you didn't know anything about good design, you know, it's like someone goes in, they think that because they can use Photoshop, they'd be a good designer, but maybe it doesn't work that way, and then it's not as easy as they thought it would be. So even though they managed to blag it through the interview, for instance.
That is really interesting. So there's blagging and blagging. Is that what you're saying? So there's blagging intentionally, and then there's blagging because you don't self-reflect. Is that?
Yeah, I think that's.
I tried to kind of. I mean, so what you're saying is employees need to self-reflect.
Yeah, and kind of be honest, not only with the people you're working with, but also kind of with yourself about.
Think of yourself though a year ago. Yeah, I know Illustrator, InDesign, you know, and on your visual CVs was like, yeah, 90%, 95%.
15.
And then there's palettes that you don't even know exist, right?
Yeah.
So, is it their fault at the end of the day? Does that make sense? Maybe this person in this company was honest because they thought that they could do it.
Maybe.
It's about,
Yeah.
I think it's about knowing your level and knowing your skills and knowing your position. Would that be fair to say?
Maybe he had a preconception.
If the employer doesn't ever talk to the employee, right, doesn't build a relationship with them, doesn't appraise them, they never know whether they're, you know, hero or zero. So they're gonna take that kind of risk.
Yeah, that's. I'll agree with that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Moving on to some good techniques I was looking at. I think a common kind of theme I saw was that a team that plays together stays together, and I think that's quite kind of interesting because people who kind of like each other and connect socially will work better as a team, kind of like mesh together better because, you know, they know a bit more and more comfortable working with that person, and overall it's just kind of makes kind of the communication a lot easier. So
Collaborative sketching.
yes,
Do you want to like explain to us what that means?
yeah, that's something I found on howdesign.com, which I thought was also interesting because it kind of gave everybody some input. So everybody kind of, rather than one person like sketching out what they want from the project, everybody gets to kind of put their ideas and their perspective into it. And you know, they all just go around like, say for instance, a whiteboard. So everyone kind of adds their thoughts to it, and you know, sometimes in their case they might invite clients in as well to give their perspective on it, like we did with Rosie of the Les Houses House project. She kind of talked to us about it, which I thought was quite useful. But yeah, just getting everybody in at the very beginning of the project and giving everybody some input was it was quite a good way to like get everyone invested in it, I thought. Don't know what anybody else thinks about that.
I think I agree. I think working with people that you like definitely helps. Otherwise, I don't know, feel awkward. Communication is not on the same level. I don't think the work will be as effective. I don't know. At work, I only like working with one of my mates and stuff, but because sometimes we mess around too much, they just split our shifts and don't even put us together. But when things need to be done, you get them done because you feel comfortable with that person.
What I researched was you could work with the people that you like. However, if you're given perhaps longer breaks or perhaps structured lunch breaks, you can you have time to actually talk to those people and communicate with others. And then you can go back, and then you just get back into working. And statistics show that productivity is increased by 20 to 25%.
We like our stats. I find it quite surprising that so much of the discussion hasn't been about building teams and team building. Like, I don't know, if I worked in Clark's, I don't know if I'd like the idea about going and building like a raft that we have to like sail out onto a river and do you know what I mean? It might like be like really annoying, but actually the next day after you've done it, you kind of know what Susie likes for, you know, birthdays or whatever, and exactly, and you know, you Ralph, you know, he you know, he's actually a refugee, and you never knew that. Does that make sense?
Yeah. When I was
I'm quite surprised that the discussion hasn't been. So I would see the collaborative sketching as a team building exercise. It'd be nice to kind of hear that vocabulary.
I'd say that going back to as well, connecting up the kind of play thing, like for instance, when I worked at Peter Wells years ago, we would go on trips occasionally, like we went paintballing one time, which I thought had nothing to do with work obviously, but we worked as a
Do
team.
you want to go paintballing?
Mate, I would love to go paintballing. Literally, I'll be.
And
Josh, you're an
okay.
absolute legend. Distinction, mate.
Or
Although
go
it will be
karting.
my guards.
Go karting. That would be another thing.
It's not the same kind of level of violence. though,
Yeah,
is
I know,
it?
but we'd just be shit. I'll be just like oily, sit on the floor, just like.
Bart, is he gonna love it or hate it? What do you think?
Don't know. Probably if we
I don't
like, if
know,
we have
yeah.
pictures of like Hitler or something.
Yeah, as long as he wears like SS.
If you can wear the SS uniform, he might like it.
So that's a really good point. Yeah.
Yeah, but yeah, you get to know people a lot better that way. I think in that kind of informal environment. So I thought it was.
Do
quite
you
good for bonding.
can you measure the impact of those kind of things?
Not. I don't think you can really measure it. Well, I mean, I don't think you can, but you know.
How much do you remember other experiences working there?
Not very many of the positive ones, to be honest.
Well, exactly. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, yes, it's a morale booster, but you getting to meet and to know people, and not to be this kind of person, this pretend person. I think Because in work you're a pretend person. Do you know what I mean?
basically.
You don't act in the way that you get to act. You know. In my experience, most people are good. Does that make sense? They're honest, caring, decent, nice people. You just don't often get the chance to know that and see that, and you can get with work, you can get very stressed out with people, because they're not pulling their weight, or you don't know that whether that person's mum died the day before or something, do you? Does that make sense? And that's going to suddenly snowball into a really, really bad situation. Nasty emails flying backwards and forwards, people grassing on other people to managers, and does that make sense? Suddenly we've lost all sense of teamwork.
Yeah, so I think having that kind of morale boost definitely kind of helps.
Team building, I want that.
Team building.
It's not morale boost, it's
Well,
team
morale,
building.
It's kind of interconnected.
Slightly. But it's a team
Yeah.
work seminar.
Okay.
Cool.
And kind of going back to the beginning, just I think having everybody under the same roof is a good advantage in a team, because that allows kind of a lot of ad hoc things to occur, so ad hoc meetings or updates on progress and any issues that come up. You don't have to organise, you know, a meeting on like a week's time. You can kind of get everybody together there and then to kind of, you know, agree and talk about something and just how to move forward. So having that kind of physical proximity is an advantage. I don't know if it's possible for every kind of work environment, but that's something I think is quite useful.
It's slightly obvious though, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know, I have this thing at work, it's kind of about the team, because obviously everyone has to feedback to the manager, like yearly kind of thing. But basically they ask, how can the management team improve how they do things? And it's kind of like every year you're kind of like, everything's good.
Yeah.
It's good, and then things start, and then every year it's the same thing. But then I think about it, like, if you say something like, "Oh, you're so stressy," like you need to shut up sometimes. Like, is this gonna come back to me? Like, are they gonna start treating me differently? Like, so that's why you kind of like, no, everything's good, everything's good.
I mean, your handout's really interesting. So, look how important that honest and open communication is. So, Ego is mentioning, look, I'm too scared to tell my employer what's wrong with the
yeah,
company.
because they always get so stressed and
Right,
it pisses me off.
But actually, why have they separated fear of job loss and open communication? Surely they are connected. The reason I don't tell my employer like how to do things is because I don't really want my job to change. I'm quite comfortable.
Yeah.
Thank you.
That's
That's exactly
It's curious though, isn't it? And I think Ego nailed it on the head.
Because I think if I tell her that like she just needs to stop stressing, things are gonna start changing, like the way they treat me or something, or something. They're gonna just get someone else in, and like, we won't be saying these sort of things.
Is it because there's like this hierarchy? So, is hierarchy the opposite of team? Or does team need a hierarchy? So, hierarchy in terms of you've got a leader, right? But are they the team leader or just the ruler?
I think they have.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
There's a difference between the ruler and the leader, right? And a leader, I guess, is somebody that you feel you can be open and honest with and tell them about the problems with the company. How do they become the leader as opposed to, the dictator?
Definitely they can't be afraid of your boss, you know, because I have been in the situation where I was struggling with my work at a job,